How's it going, my freedom-loving, anti-woke, ultra-MAGA madmen? Welcome to the Liberty Bowl again. Today is Thursday, June 9th, 2022.
Look, I know you got to be frustrated. I know. I can taste it. Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
So, apparently the federal government has lost all of its credibility, so they're going to go ahead and borrow some of Matthew McConaugheys to try and push their new gun regulations. Basically, we're going to go ahead and break down all these clips, and I'm going to, give you the highlights of the event. I'm going to give you a lot of my input on it. I'm going to give you a whole lot of some MAGA rhetoric. We're going to get into some pretty good shit here. You're definitely going to want to watch all the way to the end, because the end is a very, very hilarious clip. I don't know. It's going to be good times, you guys. But, as always, before we get into that, let's freaking rip this off a fat one right here. And let's get into this. Alrighty, guys, let's go make America great again.
Uvalde, Texas is where I was born.
Alright, he just said it, Uvalde, Texas is where he was born. So, of course, they need to get a celebrity to come in and basically do their work for them. Basically come in and give impassioned speech, because as we know, the government and the media, basically celebrities, have a very, very dangerous relationship. Basically the government and pop culture are two things that basically make a very bad mix together. So, of course, that's what they're going to try and do here. They're going to get Matthew McConaughey to push their agenda.
To make the loss of these lives matter. My wife and I, Camilla, we spent most of last week on the ground with the families in Uvalde, Texas. We shared stories, tears, and memories. The common thread, independent of the anger and the confusion and the sadness, it was the same. How can these families continue to honor these deaths by keeping the dreams of these children and teachers alive? Again, how can the loss of these lives matter?
Okay, so right out from the gate, basically he's describing the mission statement of the whole reason why the White House is having Matthew McConaughey come to the place where they normally come to lie to the public and give a speech. He's basically saying that it's to make the loss of these kids' lives matter, to accomplish an agenda, to get something done about getting guns out of the hands of certain individuals. Like I said, it's going to be a slippery slope. I'm telling you guys, it's going to be a slippery slope. This is the way it starts. There's been basically a long-term attack on the Second Amendment for a long time now, and this is basically another step in the direction of basically repealing the Second Amendment and basically making the Bill of Rights no longer absolute, in which case once one of them falls, then the rest of them could just kind of start to topple like dominoes.
So while we honor and acknowledge the victims, we need to recognize that this time it seems that something is different. There is a sense that perhaps there's a viable path forward. Responsible parties in this debate seem to at least be committed to sitting down and having a real conversation about a new and improved path forward. A path that can bring us closer together and make us safer as a country. A path that can actually get something done this time.
Right? There is something very, very different about this one. There's a very, very clear agenda in this, the whole extreme politicalization of this tragic incident of these children's loss of lives. There's something very different about this one, because now there is a clear and apparent path. There's a clear and present agenda, and I'm pretty sure we know where that path and that agenda is leading.
I'm here today in the hopes of applying what energy, reason, and passion that I have into trying to turn this moment into a reality. Because as I said, this moment is different. We are in a window of opportunity right now that we have not been in before.
See, I told you. And the Democratic Party and the federal government has lost its credibility so much to a point that now they need to borrow some of Matthew McConaughey's energy to accomplish their agenda.
Uvalde is where I learned to master a Daisy BB gun. That took 2 years before I graduated to a .410 shotgun. Uvalde is where I was taught to revere the power and the capability of the tool that we call a gun. Uvalde is where I learned responsible gun ownership.
Okay, many of us had a Daisy BB gun. I personally had one myself. I was taught by my grandpa how to shoot at a pretty young age. By the time I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was already handling 22 caliber pistols. I was able to, take them apart, reload them myself. I was taught how to properly shoot a gun. It's a very, very American bonding experience. That it's commonly a father-son thing. Grandfather-son thing. It doesn't exclude. Doesn't mean that it can't be with a mother or with grandmother, something like that. But that's what's very, very important. It's not so much the context of what you're doing. It's just the bonding experience with a positive role model. That's what's really, really the issue in America.
These bodies were very different. They needed much more than makeup to be presentable. They needed extensive restoration. Why? Due to the exceptionally large exit wounds of an AR-15 rifle. Most of the body so mutilated that only DNA test or green Converse could identify them. Many children were left not only dead, but hollow.
Okay, so this one seems just quite a bit exaggerated, doesn't it? So he starts out by talking about how in order to have an open casket funeral for these kids, that, the morticians needed to use, quite a bit, of extensive work, rather than just the usual makeup. Well, that's probably because the reason is when they use the usual makeup, it's because they usually deal with bodies that died of natural causes. They're usually not dealing with, people that died of gunshot wounds, for when they're, preparing bodies. That would be the usual way that they are preparing these bodies, is people that died of natural causes. Okay, so he says, the reason for this is because that the extensively large exit wounds from the AR-15 round. So they're constantly talking about this, the AR-15 round, as if it's unique to just the AR-15. They're always constantly just attacking the AR-15. In fact, a lot of these laws that they're proposing are very, very specific to just the AR-15. But when statistics show that generally the majority of homicides are perpetrated by handguns, right? So he then goes on to talk about, much like how Joe Biden was talking about earlier, a couple weeks ago, about how, it's going to, a 9mm bullet is designed to blow the lungs clean out of somebody. He talks about, these kids were basically vaporized. The only way that they were able to identify some of these bodies is through DNA evidence that they were able to scrape off of one of their shoes. That sounds quite a bit exaggerated, right? He's basically trying to make it sound like they were vaporized with a single shot from an AR-15, and he says they were left hollow, right? So back to blowing the old lungs out, right? He clearly got this talking point from the White House.
I was told by many that it takes a good year before people even understand what to do next. And even then, when they become secure enough to take the first step forward, a lifetime is not going to heal those wounds.
Right? So he was told by many that it takes a good year before people even understand what to do next, which is why we need to get, people to make these rash decisions right now while they are in this state of mourning, before they are able to think about the consequences of what they might be doing.
That they want their children's dreams to continue to accomplish something after they are gone. They want to make their lost of life matter.
Right? I'm pretty sure that's probably the same exact, line of bullshit that they gave to the George Floyd family, that, that, oh, let us use your son's name to create a better place to live. And it ended up being fiery but mostly peaceful protests that were, very violent and very, very damaging, and very basically, very damaging to the society at large. And basically these were all done in the name of their family member. And it also, not to mention the fact that it made some people filthy stinking rich and put them in multiple mansions, right?
Look, we heard from so many people, right? Families of the deceased, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, Texas Rangers, hunters, Border Patrol, and responsible gun owners who won't give up their Second Amendment right to bear arms. And you know what they all said? We want secure and safe schools, and we want gun laws that won't make it so easy for the bad guys to get these damn guns.
Yeah, no, notice one group of people that he seemed to have not talked to, the police, who sat outside for an hour while he was inside murdering children and telling, parents and fucking, civilians, no, stand down, basically, we got this down. It's a hostage situation. Meanwhile, they're in there hearing children being shot.
So, we know it's on the table. We need to invest in mental health care. We need safer schools. We need to restrain sensationalized media coverage. We need to restore our family values. We need to restore our American values. And we need responsible gun ownership. Responsible gun ownership.
Okay, so now here he finally starts getting into the whole meat and potatoes. He starts to get into the whole reason that the White House brought a celebrity on to start making their talking points. He starts talking about, how we need to invest in mental health. He says, we need safer schools, basically the obvious stuff. Then he says, we need less sensationalized media coverage. Meanwhile, he is a celebrity at the White House doing with sensationalized media coverage. Basically, he's doing a sensationalized fucking media fucking display here. Okay, he then goes on to say we need to restore the family values, and which the Democrats, the left has been basically on destroying the nuclear family for years, which is basically a common communist ideal, which is basically like they're constantly pushing for. Your kids aren't yours. Like the nuclear family's not important. It's the community, communism. All right. So he then goes on to say we need a restoration of American values. Meanwhile, he is here giving a speech to start to on, like I said, the slippery slope of repealing the Second Amendment. And like I say, once one of the original Bill of Rights falls, the rest of them are going to start to tumble like dominoes. All right. He then goes on to say that we need responsible gun ownership. In this next clip, he starts to break down what the entire bill includes.
We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them.
Okay, so quite a bit in that short little clip, right? So he says we need background checks. We already do have background checks. It's called the federal NICS check. He then goes on to say that we need, waiting periods. That, federal NICS check generally is a waiting period, right? He then goes on to say that we need to raise the age of buying a AR-15 to 21. The part of the reason that, rifles are basically available at 18 is generally because rifles are more or less used for sport, for hunting, things like that. Like I said, the majority of homicides in the United States are perpetrated with handguns, right? Not rifles. So, and at this present point in time, in the majority of fucking states, I'm not sure if it could be all of them. It could be all of them, but you need to be 21 to purchase a handgun already. So, like I said, the ball has already been rolling on this. Right? He then goes on to talk about red flag laws and that there needs to be consequences for people that abuse these red flag laws. Wonder who might be abusing them. Maybe someone like the government to say, oh, this person's crazy. This person, doesn't, he has different ideals and stuff like that. He's crazy. They're currently on a witch hunt with the January 6th committee, trying to imprison their political their political opponents, their political opposition. They're basically trying to silence the opposition and imprison their opponents. So you think maybe they might possibly try to abuse these red flag laws? Possibly. I don't know. It definitely doesn't sound like the government to abuse things, right?
These are reasonable, practical, tactical regulations to our nation, states, communities, schools, and homes. Responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals. These regulations are not a step back. They're a step forward for a civil society and the Second Amendment.
Okay, so major red flag that I hear straight out the gate on this. So he says these are reasonable, practical, and tactical regulations. Tactical, that are going to be implemented in our communities, homes, and schools. These are tactical regulations that are going to be implemented in our communities, homes, and schools. They are coming for your guns, people. If that doesn't spell it out right there, they're coming for your goddamn guns, dude. And then he's gonna try and say that this is an abuse of the Second Amendment. This is gonna reinforce the Second Amendment. It's gonna make the Second Amendment better.
Look, is this cure-all? Hell no. But people are hurting. Families are, parents are. And look, as divided as our country is, this gun responsibility issue is one that we agree on more than we don't.
Okay, so here he basically goes to say, is this gonna make it better? Is this gonna fix it? Hell no, definitely not. But it's a step in the right direction, and it's something that basically we can all agree on. Even though that we are far divided right now. No, it's not something that we all agree on, because as I preach here, rhetoric alert, you guys. The Conservative Party is not conserving shit. The Conservative Party should be changed to the Compromise Party. You don't conserve anything, because the left, the Liberal Party is screaming their damn heads off. They're basically like a screaming child. And what the Conservative Party does is they compromise and they give in. So this is the reason why we need this divide. This is the reason why I am constantly going to say it. I'm going to say it again. We need to plant our heels, and we cannot back down to this whole woke society, this whole fucking communist, fucking socialist America that they're trying to usher in. We must stand for America.
It really is. Look, this should be a nonpartisan issue. This should not be a partisan issue. There is not a Democratic or Republican value in one single act of these shooters. It's not. But people in power have failed to act. So we're asking you. And I'm asking you, will you please ask yourselves, can both sides rise above? Can both sides see beyond the political problem at hand and admit that we have a life preservation problem on our hands? Because we got a chance right now to reach for and to grasp a higher ground above our political affiliations. A chance to make a choice that does more than protect your party. A chance to make a choice that protects our country now and for the next generation. We got to take a sober, humble, and honest look in the mirror and rebrand ourselves based on what we truly value. What we truly value. We got to get some real courage and honor our immortal obligations instead of our party affiliations. Enough with the counterpunching. Enough of the invalidation of the other side. Let's come to the common table that represents the American people. Find a middle ground, the place where most of us Americans live anyway, especially on this issue. Because I promise you, America, you and me, we are not as divided as we are being told we are.
Okay, here he goes into the whole, how basically, like I said, like how I constantly say, how the left always constantly wins the arguments, and basically how we constantly give another inch until we're miles away from where we should be as a nation. All right, so he's basically trying to like I say, America is becoming highly polarized right now, and it is for a reason. It is because the left has overstepped their bounds. They've become highly tyrannical, and this is the reason why there is a massive shift to the right, or basically the left and the right is becoming completely relabeled. The left is becoming the Socialist Party, the right is becoming the Libertarian Party, which basically goes to show that this middle ground is no longer, it's not a middle ground, because the middle ground is basically just a given to the left, and it's constantly going to be, the middle ground is constantly going to be pulled farther left and farther left. And basically, in order to be a fucking moderate, you have to basically say that fucking, all trans women are stunning and beautiful, and all this and that shit, and blah 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 blah, left wing woke this shit. That's what you need to be a moderate these days, right? I mean, basically, if you believe in liberty and freedom and shit, you're a far right conservative in their opinion. So that's why we do these shows, because like I say, all I do is I sit here and I fucking talk the hashtag truth. And I just got my first video removed from YouTube for misinformation. So pat myself on the back for that one, guys. Real proud of that.
No. How about we get inspired? Give ourselves just cause to revere our future again. Maybe set an example for our children. Give us reason to tell them, hey, listen and watch these men and women. These are great American leaders right here. Hope you grow up to be like them. And let's admit it. We can't truly be leaders if we're only living for re-election. Let's be knowledgeable and wise and act on what we truly believe. Again, we got to look in the mirror, lead with humility, and acknowledge the values that are inherent to, but also above politics. We got to make choices, make stands, embrace new ideas, and preserve the traditions that can create true progress for the next generation. With real leadership, let's start giving us, all of us, with real leadership, let's start giving all of us good reason to believe that the American dream is not an illusion.
Okay, so here he makes a few points about, how really, it's a good point, basically about, how a lot of career politicians and stuff like that, they don't really care about the actual issues or, the actual people that they are elected to serve. All they care about is re-election and more votes. Basically, politics has become a popularity contest. It started with, Bill Clinton back in the 90s playing saxophone on TV and getting elected by, popularity. Ever since then, it's been nothing but a popularity contest. People don't care about the issues no more. People don't even follow politics. If you ask most people, they don't even know, how a bill gets passed. They don't even know, how laws are made. They don't even know, they don't even know that we live in a republic. They don't even know that we don't live in a democracy. Most people don't know this shit because once MTV and this whole rock the vote and all this and that bullshit started coming out, people don't care about issues. People care about popularity, and that's a real major issue that's going on in America. And it's been going on for a long time, and it's intentional. It's not like it's like America's just losing interest in this and that. It's intentional. They don't want you to question. They don't want you to be concerned. They want you to basically they give you two choices. Both choices benefit them. Democrat or Republican. Both are pieces of fucking shit. Both are self-serving politicians, and these are the only choices that we're given in America. And this, he talks about, like kids, we need to get politicians that kids want to look up to, and I don't want to grow up and be like him. That's really lacking, But then again, it doesn't matter because government and media, have such a terrible. It's a great relationship for them. It's terrible for the people. This horrible relationship with government and pop culture and media. It's really devastating to the basically American ideal, the American way of life, because like I said, people don't follow the issues. They follow the popularity. They follow, what MTV told them to vote for. They listen, basically if TV says it, Orange Man bad, well, Orange Man must be bad. People don't think for themselves no more. Media, social media, you know, music, pop culture, all of this stuff is much, 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 much more influential than any social issue. It's much more influential than even a mass shooting. Pop culture influences people much more than social issues that we're going to forget about next week. Everybody remember Ukraine? Most of the fucking people don't, right? Everyone seemed to forget about that once gay pride came around. I personally never gave two shits about Ukraine. I could care less. Sorry, people die every day. It's horrible, whatever. I want to keep that out of America. Once it comes here, I'm worried about it. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. So he's talking about, we have a real issue with politicians, and how all they care about is votes and this and that. I couldn't agree more. But then again, how sincere could I really take the words of Matthew McConaughey, who is a paid talking head who will literally say anything you tell him to for money, much like any other celebrity, which is why celebrities and government have a very, very scary and unhealthy relationship. Alrighty guys, so that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. You guys definitely have a good one. Hope you guys enjoyed all the clips. I'm going to go ahead and leave you here with probably the most heartbreaking words that he spoke tonight. Here you go.
The denial, the disillusion, anger, blame, sadness, loss of lives, dreams halted. And they never got to get that food truck together.
Hey, look at me, man. I look like I could be Fox News' Brian Stelter, aka the warmongering establishment Stackwell Republican known as Sean Hannity. Subscribe to our YouTube page, or better yet, find us on Rumble to get more fat bowls, fucking good news, bad news, fucking crazy opinions, and good times. Fuck off.